What movie are we watching for this year's Turkey Day tribute to Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I found the perfect subject. It's a 1960s short film that deals with such universal themes as sex shaming, homophobia, drug paranoia, and adults complaining about young people.
I can taste the stuffing and sweet potatoes already.
It's a charming little piece titled Perversion for Profit. And since Toby Benson is still away on his honeymoon with Jack, we're going to have to riff it ourselves. You think we can handle it?
Bring it on. Citizens for Decent Literature Incorporated is supported by an endowment from the Frederick Wortham Foundation, inciting moral panic since 1954.
Perversion for profit and for fun. Outstanding news reporter. I reserve the right to decide that for myself. Thank you very much.
I'm George Putnam.
Outstanding news reporter.
Begin with a fact. A simple yet shocking fact. It is this. A flood tide of filth is engulfing our country in the form of newsstand obscenity and is threatening to pervert an entire generation of our American children.
Just a sober, restrained statement of fact.
When a person is perverted, it is practically impossible for that person to adjust to normal attitudes in regard to sex.
I learned that one the hard way.
Much of this material has been described as an illustrated, detailed course in perversion, abnormal sex, crime, and violence.
Supplies are limited. Call now.
It is also a fact that no matter who buys this material,
They love it.
75 to 90% of it ends up in the hands of our children.
Wow, 75 to 90% off. That's a hell of a sale.
Concern. Pornography and sex deviation have always been with mankind. This is true. But now consider another fact.
I'm a hysterical old
Never
prude.
in the history of the world have the merchants of obscenity, the teachers of unnatural sex acts, had available to them the modern facilities for disseminating this filth.
I bet he loved the internet.
High-speed presses, rapid transportation, mass distribution.
The printing press. Thanks, Gutenberg.
Just imagine entire commercial airliners filled with pornography.
In the past few years, this obscenity traffic and salacious newsstand literature have become increasingly worse, not only in content, but in volume.
And hotness.
This traffic continues to increase and flourish for one reason.
Miscegenation.
It is big business.
Oh.
Profitable
Well, you were
business
close.
for the mercenary persons who produce it, and for its more than 800 distributors. The United States Supreme Court has described it as dirt for dirt's sake.
Isn't that just nature,
We
though?
describe it as dirt for money's sake. Obscene literature is a $2 billion a year business. That's $2 billion.
How much restraint do you think it took for them not to make the drawing of the guy with the money outrageously anti-Semitic?
Oh, a lot.
He is even enticed to enter the world of homosexuals, lesbians,
Lesbians are homosexuals.
masochists, and other sex deviants.
Such as members of the United States
Psychiatric
Congress.
terms for these unnatural sex acts are unknown to most decent adults in our country.
I know them all, however.
But through this salacious material, these abnormalities are corrupting the minds and the hearts of our children. Perversion for profit. Here is the most
Squiddly
vicious,
diddly, don't be
the most
sad.
insidious
He
feature
hates
of
being in the
these
perversion for
publications.
profit business. You can
They
tell.
constantly portray abnormal sexual behavior as being normal. They glorify unnatural sex acts.
Like woman on top.
Or using birth control.
It's thrilling. It provides kicks to be a homosexual, a sadist, and every other kind of deviant.
How hard is he right now, do you think?
Military Chaplains Association of the
Stuffy?
United States,
I'm not touching that.
practically every
That's
major
just what he would want you to say.
civic and religious organization, the juvenile court judges,
The Thunderbirds.
Bureau of Investigation, innumerable psychiatrists,
The cast of
sociologists,
Peyton
and
Place.
psychologists attribute the moral decay among our people
To jazz
very
music.
large part
Oh
to the
wait, that's what
obscene
your parents thought.
pornographic literature so prevalent in our society. This moral decay weakens our resistance to the onslaught of the communist masters of deceit.
So, perversion for profit makes us susceptible to communism?
Yeah, something about that doesn't make sense.
Is the natural curiosity of youth about the mysterious force of sex.
A force I experience every time I pull my Putnam.
Is a welter of misinformation which can wreck them for life.
Sounds like Breitbart.com.
Well, at this point, my friends, I wish to make it clear that the obscenity I'm talking about and the examples that I'm about to show you were not bought on the sly from under the counter. They were not purchased on Skid Row or on the other side of the tracks.
They were taken from my own personal collection.
By anyone in drugstores, groceries, delicatessens, terminals, malt shops, cigar stores, newsstands.
You could buy porn at the deli in the 60s?
It was a more innocent
In
time.
a small town like McAllen and the Rio Grande, or in Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles.
Sorry, I need a second. Can we
An
cut?
example of one major category are the so-called girly magazines, which sell over 15 million copies a month.
I buy them in
Highly
bulk,
colorful
to burn them,
magazines
of course.
picture stark nudity on slick paper.
Slick, lascivious
They often present their
paper.
subject on bed or couch, in positions indicative of intercourse or other sex act, obviously calculated to stimulate the reader.
Or the overcompensating documentary host.
Nudity of these
Outstanding
magazines
news reporter.
is defended
My
and
mistake.
foisted upon the people by a vociferous minority in our society.
And remember, minorities are always bad.
Values of our Judeo-Christian heritage.
She's a bachelor?
They not only oppose the principles of that heritage, which has given us our rich institutions and laws, but they advocate their overthrow.
Well, what's offensive about that one? She's just doing some
For the sake
painting.
of decency in this film, we have partially covered the pictures and disguised the identity of the models. But actually, these magazines not only display complete nudity,
Even butt
do
crack?
so in a perverted manner.
Mom?
Such
Oh
as
God,
the
Mom,
appeal to
why?
The sodomist. Such as these shots, which are typical of the preoccupation with the female breast.
Look at these bosoms. Look at them!
And this one, with its overtones of bestiality.
Hey, I'm just on my way to the shitter, Daddy-O. Leave me out of it.
Lesbian implications. Another important problem common to these publications.
They're always sold out by the time I get there.
Participation in wild, flagrant abuses of the God-given gift of sex.
The God-given, filthy,
This is
mysterious
aptly
gift of
depicted by
sex.
the pose of this obviously young girl, her clothes in the disarray of sexual activity.
Wearing the dress I bought her for her birthday. Oh my God, Susanna, my poor precious child, what have they done to you?
And again, the breast fetish. Note the sensual expression alluded to by Dr. Sorokin, the renowned Harvard sociologist.
I thought Dr.
Being the
Sorokin was the one who
hallmark
brought
of
logic to Vulcan.
Contemporary photography. And then we come to nudist magazines. If they were printed only for the nudist cult, they would never exist.
The nudist preference for non-existent magazines has been well established by several peer-reviewed
These
studies.
total exposures are not of nudists in some instances, but rather of paid professional models. Group exposure is a hallmark of these cultists. However, it's been well stated that very few blind people join the nudist colonies.
Well stated by prudish killjoys like me.
Total
Aren't there
anatomical
relatively few
detail is
blind
typical
people
of
just
these
in general?
magazines. A young boy in Philadelphia raped and killed a 5-year-old girl. And while he was testifying that he had been stimulated to this
I think
heinous
the
crime
bar on that one is a
by
little
reading
low.
nudist magazine, a federal court judge in Washington was granting to that very same publication a second-class mailing permit.
I'm sure that would be horrible if I grasped the
We
significance.
come to a terribly sad indictment of our society, the so-called physique group of publications. These magazines with a homosexual viewpoint and poses are often not understood by many youngsters who take them as instruction of body development.
Well, follow those instructions. Look at them. They're doing something right.
Of even the normal male adult to this type of publication, though he may not be aware of its true nature, will nevertheless pervert.
I'm pretty sure that one on the right is Steve Reeves.
Are you sure it's not Reg Park?
Who, in purchasing and studying this material, becomes a pawn for these misfits.
Look for the early warning signs that your child may be interested in physical fitness.
The evil of the breed. Today's conquest, they say, is tomorrow's competition.
It's an old Chinese proverb, I think.
Age at which homosexuals prefer their conquests. Look here at the young face and bright smile which could be the hope of the world. But in the other half of the picture
A New Hope.
is revealed the seduction of the innocent. Look at this poor young lad. But
His
when looking,
round buttocks, his
think of
lithe,
others
strong
might follow
form.
his perfidious footsteps when photos like these are available at the corner news rack.
Oh, they look like those
And
photos
so it
taken
goes.
by that awful Roger
Countless
Maplethorne.
poses, still pictures, slides, movies, all with the same content.
Trust me, I've examined all of these magazines extensively, painstakingly, for years and years.
It approaches another class of magazines dealing with transvestites.
How does a naked dude holding a sheet even remotely suggest a transvestite?
Gratification for the participant. This picture, of course, merely confesses on the cover of the magazine the charges we have made.
The charges that gay people exist and they have a viewpoint.
And their table of contents speak more eloquently than I of the tremendous problem here presented.
Not everyone has sex the same way you do, and that should upset you.
Flagellation cults, erotic, confessions of a sadist. What is fetishism?
Knowledge is something to be feared.
The worship of the whip. Sexual problems of a masochist. How to buy a whipping.
You keep mouthing off, I'll give you a whip and won't cost you nothing.
Are cross-dressers afraid of sex? These titles lead us to an even more bizarre but nevertheless common product of our news racks.
Highlights magazine.
The composite
Hey, I was right.
picture here speaks for itself. This type of aberration is usually depicted by showing several persons, one of whom is dominant, and binding or inflicting pain upon the other. And thus, the grotesque costuming and the significance of
Those
the
are just
extreme
pantyhose.
white heel and the tight boot, the riding crop, the burning cigarette, rubber and leather garments.
I really need to take a minute. Can we please cut?
And here again, an appeal to the sodomist, with a play upon the buttocks.
You really need to make sure the other person is into it before you make a play upon the buttocks.
This picture hints at the common idea of bestiality. Dr. Sorokin, the renowned sociologist at Harvard,
Oh,
said,
why don't you just marry
"Today
Dr.
the
Sorokin?
newsstands, quote, depict the world as a sort of human zoo, inhabited by raped, mutilated, and murdered females, and by he-males.
He-Male and the masters of the universe.
The
He-Male.
lustiest of animals. Male and female alike are hardened in cynical contempt of human life and values." Unquote.
I'm getting a Skype call from Toby Benson. Toby Benson! Hey man, how's the Bahamas?
Oh, we done left there already, baby.
You did?
Yeah, that island paradise got boring as shit after a week, so I persuaded a very helpful young man at the customer service desk to give us a partial refund, and we flew our asses to Vegas.
Vegas. Awesome. That sounds a bit more your speed. Hey man, it was good to hear from you, but I gotta go. Me and Stuffy are doing the Turkey Day riff.
I know, baby. That's why I called. I don't want to miss it.
How are you gonna riff with us over Skype?
Easy. You tell me what video you're watching and how far you are into it, and I'll just follow along over here.
Oh. Okay. Well, we're watching Perversion for Profit. It's on YouTube, and I am paused at exactly 13 minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay. Got it, baby. Let's do this.
You sure you have time to do this? I don't want to interrupt your honeymoon.
I got a couple minutes before we have to leave to go see a show, baby, so let's stop fucking around and do this.
Okay, here we go. Pushing play now.
The degradation of these people is so complete, as shown here, that their sex satisfaction and climax come only in being tortured themselves.
As seen in this deleted scene from D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation.
Even the blasphemy of the human body is depicted in this devilish, sadistic shot.
You forgot to add the modesty bars to this one?
Common on our newsstands of America. Seldom have you been in a supermarket without brushing by the news rack with the so-called men's adventure magazines, where with word and picture, lust and violence...
Wow, there is a lot going on in that scene.
Eyes. It would seem that publishers of this material deliberately print these magazines...
Does he think we thought they printed them by accident, baby?
...to hook the adolescent into the knowledge of the unnatural. These publishers know well that once so exposed, the insatiable curiosity of youth will cause him to delve deeper and deeper into this grotesque material.
Like how you're exposing us to it right now?
Is complete.
Don't you want your boys to be pure when they're shipped off to Vietnam?
The problem is graphically illustrated by these advertisements, all of which were clipped from this one copy of a single girly magazine.
Selected at random from a box in a dark corner of my laundry room.
The rawest materials can be ordered through the United States mails. And thus, newsstand publications create a market for illustrated hardcore pornography.
I prefer the non-illustrated hardcore pornography.
You probably think that there couldn't be anything worse.
Well, I was just watching a story about Bloody Sunday on the news.
Single group of publications is the cheap pocketbook.
My mom lost her wallet once thanks to a cheap pocketbook.
Is that why she had to pose for those nude photos?
We do not discuss it.
Abnormal sex practices of every kind are described with intimate physical detail. Nothing is left to the imagination.
I'm talking about the kind of burritos they don't sell at Chipotle, baby.
To come join the fun. Teenagers particularly are liable to pull down the corners of the obscene passages, the more readily to dwell on them over and over and over again.
Don't forget about the nosy, sexually frustrated parents of those teenagers. Those dog-eared pages let them skip right to the good parts.
And seeks out their products.
Oh, God, now what's he going to do? Show us his research project for social studies?
This is a book typical of many. It is called Sex Jungle.
It is part of a particularly subversive genre known as Choose Your Own Adventure.
Not because it is particularly obscene, but because it portrays a philosophy that is aimed at our young people.
It's a terrifying ideology known as racial and gender equality.
But through all of this material,
The Obscenity and Depravity series from Time Life Books.
a 16-year-old boy, member of a gang, has just clubbed an old man in the course of a robbery.
Oh, baby, this sounds like an improv class I took once.
For his accomplishment. Maybe he would die. That would mean I had murdered him.
At least he's thinking clearly.
Trying the idea on for size. One of the things that always had cheesed me a little was that I had no kills to my credit. I'd been in plenty of rumbles, but somehow I'd never cooled anyone.
You are the bouncers, I am the cooler.
I couldn't feel very proud of sculling an old man, but at least I could say that I'd scored. That was a big kick. What are we alive for, except to grab all the kicks we can?
He makes a very compelling argument, baby.
Sure, a damn good one. A guy can't ever get enough of that. Drinking. That's another kick. An okay kick. Marijuana? Sure. M's good, too. If you don't let it get the upper hand with you.
Marijuana. I can't believe he's advocating carefully moderated use of a relatively harmless recreational drug.
But horse isn't such a good kick because it takes more than it gives. And before long, you use it and you don't get any kick.
Horse isn't such a good kick. That's kind of funny if you think about it.
That was a kick that I'd tried a couple times. It makes you feel real big to grab a girl, rip her clothes off, and take her.
Oh, you mean like the President-elect of the United States admitted that he does all the time?
Steve, he said they let him do it, which means it couldn't possibly have been sexual assault.
Oh, right, I forgot.
The way I look at it. I'm brainier than a lot of gang guys.
You know, I wish they hadn't published this sequel to Catcher in the Rye.
Maybe I should have been a professor. The way I thought it out, taking a girl's cherry's a hell of a gratifying thing.
What does he mean by taking a girl's cherry?
Like off the top of an ice cream sundae, baby.
Oh, so it's not a euphemism for breaking the hymen?
That's living big.
How small is the print on that page?
About doing it this long, drawn-out way.
Long, drawn out. Yes, I'm totally relating to that.
There wasn't much kick in that. But sticking a knife into a guy, twisting upward, that must be something.
Oh my God, he's right. That shit sounds amazing. I gotta try that shit, baby.
Okay, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Why would George Putnam, outstanding news reporter, choose to illustrate the depravity of these pocketbooks by reading a passage that's all about a teenage gang member thoughtfully reflecting and expressing some remorse for his action?
Because he can't tell the difference between depiction and glorification. He thinks that if a book or a film shows characters engaging in harmful behavior, that's the filmmaker's way of telling the audience that they should be doing it too.
Kinda like how putting the Cobra Kai in the Karate Kid was that director's way of telling me to run out and learn martial arts so I could fuck people up.
Yes, that's it exactly.
Anyway, it's been real, babies, but I gotta go.
So soon?
Can't help it. If we don't leave right now, we're gonna miss the start of the show.
Who are you going to see, Toby Benson?
Britney Spears. And if I don't get to hear baby one more time, I'm gonna choke somebody. Later, babies.
Bye.
Bye, Toby Benson.
Shall we?
I see you're observing your usual Thanksgiving Day ritual.
Yep.
And as usual, you failed to invite me.
I'm sorry, Millicent. I just didn't think you'd have fun doing something like this.
I am not interested in what you think. I demand to be included.
Okay, then. The more the merrier, right, Stuffy?
Let's do this. I'm over here now.
Repeat, my friends, I have not shown you these pictures and quoted from this material merely to shock you or make this presentation sensational.
I have done it to create a pretext so that I could look at it.
On your newsstands. And think of this. What you have just seen is not the worst material available.
Well, it certainly wasn't the best.
This required editing to make it suitable to be shown in this film. The vast majority of this material is too obscene to show or to quote to you.
How condescending.
Well, now you know how we feel when we talk to you.
Unbelievable.
Turn so many decent people today. But isn't it reasonable to presume that material such as you've just seen is one of the major factors?
What kind of material has this human been showing you?
It's mostly just pictures of naked people.
How lewd.
But they pasted little bars over the naughty bits.
Well, I suppose that's all right.
You must realize that they are constantly exposed to those who do read this material.
Like me.
Who might be triggered into compulsive acts of sex violence.
Like me.
As I said before, the most insidious feature of these publications is that they glorify crime and ridicule law and authority. Vice is presented as fun.
Reading the business section of the paper while your family leaves you alone. Now that's fun.
1 out of every 20 children born in the United States last year was illegitimate. The rate of illegitimacy has been steadily climbing. And the care of these children costs taxpayers $1 billion a year in government aid.
Oh, that's why we should care about illegitimate children, because they're too expensive.
To a husky, bellyaching about how much it costs to help those in need is a sign of poor breeding.
Then what do your older relatives talk about during Thanksgiving?
How humans ruin everything.
Oh, okay, so not that different.
Increased more than 300% in the last 5 years. The incidence of gonorrhea has been steadily rising.
Not as much as I would like, but I'm just one man.
Occurs among the expanding homosexual population.
Why does he make that sound so sinister?
Because he wants us to think gay people are predators who seduce unsuspecting hetero folks into crossing over to their side.
Who is this human? A puritanical minister of one of your blasphemous religions?
He's George Putnam, outstanding news reporter.
A vicious crime of violence, murder, forcible rape.
As opposed to Trump-style rape, where they let you do it.
Committed every 3 minutes. The total cost of crime...
I didn't realize Vice magazine was that old.
Misery, tax, and material loss is beyond calculation. Sex Mad Magazine...
Don't ruin sex by pairing it with Mad Magazine.
That we can build jails to house them. This $2 billion a year racket is challenging every mother and father in this country and everyone interested in the welfare of our children. The question is this.
Is this art?
You know, those back issues of How to Kill are worth a fortune nowadays.
Stable marriage before they have had a chance to achieve the economic, educational, and emotional stability necessary for family life? Do you want your son enticed into the world of homosexuals? Or your daughter lured into lesbianism?
And if that does happen, do you want me to watch?
Discover how to get sexual gratification by inflicting pain on themselves or by torturing other people? Do you want them to lose all chance of a normal, happy, married life?
Do you want to remain morbidly obsessed with the sexual preferences of your children for the rest of your life?
The circulation of this material is the price we pay for freedom in this country.
I thought being constantly bombarded by bigoted abuse on the internet was the price we paid for freedom in this country.
Smut peddlers do not have the right to contaminate our society. This is a nation of laws, and you and I have a constitutional guarantee to police protection of our welfare.
Guarantee applicable to whites only, offer void above 110th Street.
Here in a typical courtroom, a judge is instructing the jury in the case of a smut peddler.
We now cut to the boring second half of Law and Order.
Lakewood has a valid constitutional legal ordinance prohibiting the publication, sale, or distribution of obscene material.
They can't outlaw John Waters.
It is this law that the defendant herein was arrested and prosecuted. The Supreme Court of the United States has clearly stated that obscenity is without constitutional protection.
The old age home must have taken a field trip to the courthouse that day.
Which deals with sex in a manner appealing to the prurient interest. That is, material having a tendency to excite lustful thoughts.
Oh, like Nicki Minaj.
It would be well to point out that it is not necessary to prove that this material has led to an act of violence or sex crime, but merely that the material...
Seriously, what's the
taken in
minimum
itself
age to
is
serve on a
obscene.
human jury?
The test is
85?
whether to the average person applying contemporary community
Is that
standards,
Forrest
the
Gump?
dominant theme of the
And he's
material
sitting next to
as a
Aunt
whole
Bee.
appeals to the prurient interest. If material meets this test, it is without the constitutional guarantees of freedom of press and speech. Now you, the jury, must apply the test of obscenity to the material distributed by this defendant.
They are
You, ladies and
exceptionally
gentlemen of the
white,
jury,
aren't they?
Are the sole triers of the facts in this case. The application of this legal test to the evidence is to be made by you and you alone. You, in effect, by your decency, determine the level of morality in this community.
You, the people who flipped out over school desegregation, are the arbiters of decency and morality.
And so, my friends, the question is whether you consider publications, samples of which you have seen in this film, to be below your community standards. To find the answer, ask yourself these questions. Would you display this material on your living room table?
Only if I knew you were coming
Do you
over.
find such material in the living rooms of your friends and neighbors?
No, but I find it in their underwear
Would you
drawers.
read stories from these publications to your family or friends?
He's never heard of a bachelorette party.
Huskies have those?
Reinvented them.
Of course you would not. Your community standards are far above this depraved material.
If that's true, why ask the question? What are we even doing here?
You've seen the nature of the problem. You've heard the legal solution. But what can you as an individual in your own community do?
I'm assuming mind your own business is off the table.
Start with your own home. Check your own reading and the reading matter coming into your home for your entire family.
And be strict. Remember, your teenage children can masturbate to almost anything.
Magazines brought into the home by adults.
Well, is he gonna high-five him or what? Ugh.
Promote good reading.
Help your children discover the classics like Justine or 120 Days of Sodom.
Magazines will help build positive values that are a protection against obscenity.
If you catch them reading anything other than Boy's Life, whip them unmerciful.
Pocketbooks and magazines, grocery stores, newsstands, malt shops, everywhere from the corner drugstore to the barber shop. And if you find obscenity for sale,
Burn them to
call
the
it
ground.
the attention of the owner. Remember, trading in stores that sell salacious material supports the obscenity racketeers. Fourth, report objectionable material to the police.
Pester law enforcement with your priggish grousing.
Every conviction is a step in the education of the public to the solution of the problem. Remember, the law is your weapon.
Unless you're black, or brown, or Native American, or poor, or an immigrant, or a Muslim, or a sexual assault victim, or disabled.
And to the newspapers whenever they take action against obscenity.
Always remember to observe a business formal dress code when writing letters of support to local officials.
How high your community standards are. Sixth, form a committee for decent literature within your fraternal, civic, or religious organization.
So basically, in the 60s, when black folks were fighting for civil rights and the recognition of their basic humanity, white folks in the suburbs were worried about this shit?
Thank Husco things aren't like that
Your
anymore.
community. Such a community organization will awaken people to the problem.
Or convince them to stop coming to town meetings.
Other means to educate the public and arouse public opinion which will support the police and prosecutors so that prompt, vigorous enforcement of the law can be expected.
Okay, hand check. George, let me see those hands.
Advice on the organization of a citizen
Could be pulling his Putnam under that frame line.
can be obtained by writing to CDL, Box 12, Cincinnati, Ohio.
I wonder how many people wrote to that address hoping to obtain a commercial driver's license.
And shown you today that a moral decay is spreading through our country and our society. This same type of rot and decay caused 16 of the 19 major civilizations to vanish from the earth.
What happened to the other three?
Magnificent Egypt,
Probably
classical
hubris.
Greece, Imperial Rome all crumbled away, not because of the strength of the aggressor, but because of moral decay from within.
But wasn't Rome Christian by that point?
Are in a unique position to cure our own ills. Our Constitution was written by men who put their trust in God and founded a government based on His law.
His misogynistic, slavery-condoning laws.
Are on our side. We have a constitutional guarantee of protection against obscenity.
Ah, yes, the amendment.
Today especially, we must seek to deliver ourselves from this twisting, torturing evil. We must save our nation from decay and deliver our children from the horrors of perversion.
Not to mention the horrors of Spider Island.
Our land, the land of the free, a safe home. Oh God, deliver us, Americans, from evil.
Yeah, he just said that.
Remember, folks, resist perversion for profit by insisting on only free open source perversion. Well, Millicent, what did you think?
It was awful. You do this every Thanksgiving?
Yep.
Why?
To honor one of our favorite TV shows, Mystery Science Theater 3000, which airs an annual marathon on Thanksgiving. And because it's fun.
You intentionally watch bad movies just so you can crack jokes and feel smug and superior and... Okay, now I get it. Yes. On second thought, this was quite enjoyable.
We're glad you could join us. Happy Turkey Day, Millicent.
Happy Turkey Day. Do you want to hang out? We're going to watch the rest of the MST3K marathon.
Are there any huskies on it?
No. There are robots.
How ridiculous. It's so typical of humans to build machines to do their work.
Well, these robots don't really work. They just watch movies and make jokes.
Very well, let us watch these lazy, frivolous robots.
You won't be sorry, Millicent.
I'll be the judge of that.
Happy Turkey Day, everybody! I hope you like this one. These videos have become one of the highlights of my YouTube year. I love making them so much. They are so much fun to write and to make, and hopefully they're fun for you to watch as well. If you like this one, please like, share, subscribe, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel for as little as $1 a month. It really helps me out. And if you especially like these types of videos, these MST3K style riff videos that I do with Stuffy and the gang occasionally, check out the next milestone on my Patreon campaign, because when I reach that milestone, I'm going to do another Steve and Stuffy riff style video, and it's going to be on the delusional, nightmarish, evangelical Christian film from the 1970s, If Footmen Tire You, What Will Horses Do?, which some of you may know was also produced by Estes Perkel, who is the dubious genius behind the movie The Burning Hell, which Stuffy and I riffed last year. So once I get to that next Patreon milestone, we're going to take another crack at Estes Perkel and riff on If Footmen Tire You, What Will Horses Do? So if you enjoy my YouTube work, if you enjoy the Stuffy videos, if you enjoy especially these videos where Stuffy and I riff on bad movies and you can spare $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever, you can do your part to make sure that we riff another just absolutely bonkers Estes Perkel movie. So thank you so much for watching. All of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you have a happy one, and we'll see you next time.